Hello folks. In this video I'm just going to do a quick review of the Revo VRS Multi Wireless or VRS Multi W video remote, or basically just a remote control in general for Sony cameras and camcorders. In my case, I picked it up to use with my Sony RX100 Mark V, and the main reason I wanted a remote control system was for the high frame rate mode on that Sony RX100. With the high frame rate mode, it only records a few seconds of high frame rate footage at a time. So in order to capture that, split second of action that you're wanting to catch, it's really nice to have a remote trigger if you're the only one out there and you don't have somebody to operate the camera, or if you have the camera sitting next to something that you don't necessarily want someone standing right next to in order to be able to operate the camera. So I wanted some kind of remote control system, and this is the one I picked up, and I just wanted to give you my thoughts and just basically let you know how it works for me. So just taking a quick look at the transmitter and receiver. This is the receiver, and it does have a little built-in hot shoe mount so that you could mount this directly on top of a camera. If you had a camera that had a hot shoe mount, this one of course doesn't. Both the receiver and the transmitter operate on just 2 AAA batteries. And the receiver has a little light on here that will flash to just let you know that it did receive a signal from the transmitter. The transmitter itself has a little light that just lights up when you press a button. As far as controls on the transmitter, you have a start, stop, record button. You have 2 zoom buttons. You have a sleep button, which basically actually just turns the camera on and off. You have a grid line button, which literally just toggles the grid lines on the camera display. And then you have a shutter release that actually has a little lock switch. So if you push down the shutter button and then pull the switch down, it actually locks it in place. And that's really it, other than they both also have on-off switches on the sides. Build quality isn't the greatest. They both feel like, fairly lightweight, cheap plastic. The buttons have a pretty loud clicky noise, or at least some of them do. The zoom switches are actually a 2-position switch, so they have like a half press and then a full press, so that you can actually zoom at 2 different speeds. It's not fully variable, but at least it does give you 2 different zoom speeds. And then the shutter button also is just like the shutter button on a camera. It has a half press for focusing and then a full press to release the shutter. So like I said, build quality isn't outstanding, but the fit and finish is pretty good. All the seams are pretty tight. They're pretty smooth. And it works just fine. So, overall build quality isn't great, but it's really not too bad. Setup and operation is very simple and straightforward. However, one thing I did notice is that when I first took these out of the package and powered them on, it seemed like they were connected and seemed like they should be working, but they were not working. They would not control the camera at all. And in the manual that comes with this, there's a pairing process that is listed. And there's just a button on here. I can't even remember which button it is. But one of the buttons on the face here, you just hold while you power it on. And then once this light starts flashing, then you power this on, and then they pair themselves. I've only had to do it once, but I did have to do that when I first took it out of the package to get them to connect so that it would work. So if you get one of these and it doesn't seem to be working, just look in the manual and try that pairing process. Once I've done that, it's worked fine since then. I mostly was just surprised that they didn't come paired out of the box, but it was a very simple process. Only took a couple seconds, so not a big deal. Just be aware that you do have to do that when you get them. They do list a range of 328 feet, basically 100 meters. I have not tested it out to that full distance. I've mostly just used it to about 40 or 50 feet, but up to that distance it has worked just fine. And one thing that I really like is that I haven't noticed any discernible lag between pressing a button and the camera reacting to it. There may be just a slight lag there, but it hasn't been enough that I've noticed it or that it's caused any problems, which is great, especially for that high frame rate mode where you only have a couple of seconds to actually capture the action that you want to capture. Now I have the camera sitting here so that we can show you how these operate. Very simple. You just turn them on with the little power switches on the sides. And you'll see on the receiver the light flashes red and green for a few seconds, and then it stops and just stays solid green. Just note that it did that even when the two were not paired. So when I first took it out of the box, turned them both on, these two light statuses were exactly how it ended up, even when they weren't paired. But the difference is, right now, if I press a button on the transmitter, you can see the light on the receiver reacts, and it flashes to acknowledge a receipt of a signal. It did not do that when they were not paired. But anyway, turn them both on. Only takes a few seconds for them to initialize and connect, and you're ready to go. And as for the camera connection, you just plug the USB cord into the multi-port on the camera, plug it into the receiver, and you're ready to go. And you'll see this camera is off. I did not turn it on before I plugged it in or anything, and even still, I can press the button on the transmitter and it powers the camera right on. So this power button will work to turn the camera on, even if the camera hadn't been on when I plugged it in. So very convenient to use for that. You can see I can zoom in and out with the buttons. You know, you can see very little lag. I don't know if you can hear when the button gets clicked, and you can see when it reacts. But it's very close to instant. I don't have any shutter sounds on right now, but you know, I can take pictures just like that. I can start and stop recording. And you know, if I want, I can turn the camera back off. No problem. So that's really about it. Very simple device to operate. You know, pretty simple device overall. There's not really a whole lot to it, but I think for what it is, it works pretty well, and it works great for my intended use, which is remotely triggering the high frame rate recording mode on this camera. So I just wanted to kind of briefly show it and let you know how it works for me, which is so far pretty great. It does exactly what I need it to do with no problems, and I'm happy with it. Now, I don't remember off the top of my head what all Sony cameras this will work for. It will supposedly work with all of the RX100 cameras. It will work with some of Sony's Alpha line of cameras, also some of their camcorders. So most of the places I've seen that sell this, there's a full list of all the cameras that it supports. But just bear in mind, it may not support all functions with all cameras, or at least with all lenses. Like for some of the Alpha cameras, if you have a lens connected that doesn't have a power motorized zoom, then obviously you're not going to be able to zoom in and out remotely. But just stuff like that maybe not all cameras will support all things. But at least as far as the remote shutter release and remote video start and stop, at least they'll support that. So like I said, not a whole lot to it. If you have any questions, or if there's anything you want me to try out with this little remote setup, let me know. But as always, thank you for watching. Take care.